Hello, welcome to the Stefan Modesty podcast. It is December 2, 2023, and this one will be titled The Hotel Stories. These are just a couple quick stories that happened, true stories that happened. I was working at a five-star hotel in just north of Toronto for a few years, and a few things happened there, and I'm just going to tell you the three stories of that I'd like to mention. One was car people might appreciate this, but there was a guy that we work one of the doormen. I was a doorman slash valet, so we handle the front door and we park the cars, and I was a valet because it was sometimes it wasn't busy, so you would work as a doorman and the valet, and other days if it was really, really busy and there'd be a doorman or two on, I'd be the valet. So it was one of that kind of situation. So one day there's this guy, I won't mention his name, but he was not a very good driver. He worked the front door, and back in the late 80s, he got into this. It was a very busy evening, and he got into I think it was a Lincoln Town Car, and the late 80s, 89, 90 models, where you didn't need to push the brake to switch gears. So he jumped into this car to go park it, and these cars are extremely quiet. Like once you close the door, if the windows are up in a Lincoln Town Car, you don't hear anything outside. You barely hear the engine. Very smooth car. So he apparently, way I saw it was he thought he was pushing the brake, but he was pushing the gas. And in a rush, he went for the gear column, which is on the steering wheel. It hit reverse, and the car flew backwards, and he flew forward because in his mind, you're thinking you're going to go forward, so you're kind of bracing for a forward motion. But obviously what happened was the car, just because he was flooring it, probably half throttle, the car flew backwards, threw him forward. He ended up pushing the gas even more, the throttle. So now he's got his face in the steering wheel and his ass not even on a seat anymore. His ass is down below, and he's going whatever, full speed. And this is, these are 5-liter engines, big V8. The wheels are spinning. The rear wheels are smoking. And anyways, the car went backwards, reverse, wheels spinning, smoke, everything. And this is underneath a carport. So the echo is just, very loud. Engine revving, tires spinning. And the car turned and went T-boned into a Mecedes that was parked against the curb. Put it this way, the Mecedes was... that was the end of the accident. That's where everything stopped at that point. The Mecedes was... The body of the Mecedes was about 2 feet, maybe almost 3 feet onto the sidewalk, but the wheels were still on the road, if you know what I mean. The car was bent up, ridiculous. It was he rode off the car. And because he was unionized, he didn't get fired. He had a second chance. Yeah, that was bad. I didn't actually see that happen, but I was indoors when I heard that big commotion. I came out and I saw the aftermath, and it was a mess. Luckily, nobody got hurt. He didn't get hurt. And what he told us was that he felt the car going backwards, and he didn't want to go straight back into the cab stand because there was taxis parked straight behind the front door. So he cracked the wheel to turn it, and then ended up going to... Anyways, nobody got hurt, luckily, because that would have been... If there was anybody walking behind that car, that would have been a big mess. And it put a sec... So after this happened, he got into another accident, I heard, and he was let go. But before that, I remember there was a gift shop, and we used to always talk to the girls in the gift shop. There were some girls that worked in a gift shop, a cigar store, a magazine shop in the lobby of the hotel. And I was talking to this one girl one day, and she said, "Oh, did that guy, won't mention his name, we'll call him Dave." She asked about him, and I said, "Oh yeah, he's no longer. He got into an accident." And she told me a story that she was down at the corner at the bus stop, and he drove by in his car to offer her a drive. And she said, sure, she knew him from the hotel. So she got in the car. She said he got into an accident. And then the guy that he crashed into got out and just lifted him up and started throwing him against the hood of the car and, slapping him up and stuff. And she got scared and ran away. Just took off and took the bus home. So anyways, that's closing. He's probably the worst driver I've ever met. That's the first story. The second story that happened at this hotel as well, was on a Sunday morning, a very busy checkout time, maybe 8:30 in the morning, 9, something like that. And I was inside the front lobby, and I heard screaming and cursing, and it was a woman cursing, like, potty mouth, cursing. And what had happened was, I'll give you the backstory before I get into it. She was a prostitute, and she spent the night upstairs in a room with a guy, and they raided the mini bar. Like, they drank all the booze, or a lot of it anyways. And then I guess in the morning, out of guilt, he took off and checked out, and they tried to get into the room, and the security was eventually called. They got in there, and because it was rather suspicious the way the guy left. I mean, he did pay for the room, I guess. I don't know. But he ended up taking off and checking out, and under some reason it was suspicious. They went up, looked in the room, couldn't get in, eventually got in, and they found her all passed out drunk in the room, and then they asked her to leave. And the security guy was actually a pretty big guy himself. I knew him. He was a friend of mine. He tried to get her to go out the side door because he didn't want to, all this, because she was dressed in white leather, mini dress, mini skirt, white, sort of a Western cowboy tasseled, very shiny coat, white cowboy boots. She looked like somebody from one of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. Anyway, she was all in white. If they look like that, I don't know. Anyway, she was all. Anyways, so he tried to get her to take her down the elevator and take her out the side door and get her into a cab or whatever, but she insists. She sort of broke loose from him and ran down the hallway and ended up in the middle of the lobby. And he was trying to pull her back, and she was pulling him through the lobby. And eventually he ended up just holding her arm, and she dragged him through the lobby, out the front door, passing the lineup and everything. Everybody just sitting there to check out. It was just ridiculous. Got her out the door, and then the first taxi pulled up. I was at this point, I was in the front and watching this. And a taxi pulled up. The security guy tried to open the door and shove her in there, and the taxi guy took off. He didn't want to deal with it. So then another taxi pulled up, and then he took off too. So eventually they did get her in a car. They got her calmed down and got her in a car and out the door. And that was the story of that. And that was, just like the lobby was full of people. I think there was a few people with kids in the lineup, and it was a busy, big hotel, front door lobby. About 2 or 3 lines, everybody checking out. It was a funny mess. The third story is another one car related. Is the front of the hotel? I'm trying to describe it here. Was the way you drove up? It was a one-way entrance into the front, so you had to come around, and it was kind of like a meandering S of a roadway with bushes and hedges and stuff. So if the cars are coming from one side, they'd drive kind of past you and around, and then they'd come right up in front of you into the front. So there was a little bit of a maze that you had to zip around. So the cars were parked on one side, and you had to come around and go through this S and bring it around the front. So anyways, one of the doormen I was working with, if guys who know what I'm talking about, or car people know what I'm talking about, but I'll try to describe it. It was like an 89, 90 Mustang 5-liter LX. So for people who don't know what that is, and it was an automatic as well. What that is, that car is probably one of the most lightest back end, rear end car that's possible. Like, you could spin the wheels effortlessly in this car. It was very, very light and had a lot of power in the front, a lot of power in the engine. So it spun its wheels really easily. So anyways, this guy Sam obviously never drove a 5-liter before, didn't understand it, and it was wet. It wasn't raining at the moment, but it was. We had a lot of rain, so the ground was really, really wet. So the gentleman came out and gave a ticket to him to get his car. So he went around the corner to go get the car. And meanwhile, the guy was talking to me about, asking for some places to go or whatever, because he's obviously in a hotel. He's not from Toronto and blah, blah, blah. So as I'm explaining this to him, now over his shoulder, the guy's facing me. Over his shoulder, I see Sam come around the corner of the car. He did a complete 180 by accident around the corner. Now, and what that means is he spun the car right around, or halfway around, and was facing the wrong direction. And then he put it, and then he kind of backed it around, and then he slowly came around in front of the hotel. Now, this guy didn't notice it, and the reason it didn't make any squealing noise because it was wet. It was just like a whoosh, right? So over my shoulder, over this guy's shoulder, as I'm talking to him, I'm like trying to describe to him how to get to wherever, CN Tower, whatever, take the highway down here, blah, blah, blah. Over his shoulder, I see this Mustang do this, whoosh, spin right around. I'm like, oh my God. So I got totally distracted. I was like stumbling, going, and then eventually got it together, and then Sam pulled the car out. He pulled up, and he was like nervous. He's like looking at me, and he looked at the guy, and the guy gave him a tip, goes, oh, thank you very much. Got in the car and drove away. And then after the guy got around the corner, Sam looked, he goes, did you see that? I go, no, he didn't see you do that. He goes, what the fuck was that? I go, that's a Mustang, man. You can't. He goes, how do you drive that thing? And it was hilarious, man. He just completely did a 180. And like, he did it so fast, like the car was wiggling, and when it came to the stop, it was like wiggling at the end. Like, it was such a torquey car. And it just spun around. That was the funniest thing, man. And he was so nervous. I go, the guy didn't see nothing, man. The guy was looking at me, and I'm like, I said I saw it. I described it, and we were laughing our asses off after that. Anyways, that's my 3 stories. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day or night.